All right, y'all. So this first episode, we're going to be talking about from primary parent to surrendered co-parent and understanding how to let God lead. Now, we're going to be dealing with control. We're going to be dealing with control a lot because I used to say, "Hi, I'm Ashley, an ex recovering control addict," because control was the only thing that I really knew, and was a false sense of comfort in order for me not to have to feel certain things. And so I want to preface it with this, that a lot of our choices that we make in life, when it comes to people that we have kids with, when it comes to even how we parent, how we choose even our friendships, anything that we choose, a lot of times it is a reflection of what we have experienced and what is within us. And so for me, most of my parenting journey, the beginning, a lot of the beginning, the first 7-8 years of that journey was what I had received, what I experienced, and the broken parts of me. And so I'm never going to sit here and say I was never the problem, because that's untrue. There were a lot of things that caused for the relationships that I experienced to break and to fracture, but then there was also willing parts from the men as well. And so as we deal with letting go and releasing control, I want us to also receive the peace of God, and not just this cliche understanding of the peace of God, but the peace of God that says I can rest even when it seems stormy outside. The scripture talks about, like, when the winds and the waves was going, the disciples was like, "Yo, Jesus, listen, you don't see what's going on here? You don't see what's happening here?" And he gets up and he's like, "Peace be still." Like, y'all tripping. But because I recognize that you still have not come into abiding in me, let me display my power over the winds and the waves. And so I just declare that over your situation right now, whether it be a tumultuous co-parenting relationship, whether it is you feeling like, because I'm a single parent, I don't have anybody and it feels very chaotic. I just declare that God's peace is going to come into your situation, into your storm, and you're going to understand how to rest while there's even chaos happening around you. All right, so let's get into it. Learning how to let go of control and trust God with the development of your children, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. All right, so a little backstory. I said in the beginning, I had my first son when I was 19 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a clue. There were things where I understood that I didn't want to give my son because of the things that I had experienced as a child. One of the major things that I didn't want to give him was a life filled with instability. As a child, there was a lot of instability that I experienced because of homelessness. We were chronically homeless, and I didn't recall like true stability until the age of 12. So from birth up until about 12, there was a lot of instability in my life, a lot of moving around, living with people, living in different apartments, living with in shelters, living in a trailer at one point in my childhood. And while that is not normal, when I think about it in hindsight, God's protection was like with me the whole journey of my development. Now, there were things, of course, that should have just been, but we cannot go based off shoulda, coulda, woulda, because my mom didn't have all of the tools that she needed. And so as I even had to learn how to give that to God, to heal that mother wound, to get the deliverance that I needed by way of therapy and by way of the spiritual disconnections, I have such a clear understanding and a clear message to give to other people. So, like I said, 19, didn't know what I was doing. I knew that I didn't want him to be unstable. And so that was a big driving force. And a lot of what I did was just to make sure that stability in the home was there. So you always had a place over your head. So thankfully, we have never experienced any homelessness. my children have never experienced that, and by the grace of God, they will never experience that. And so one of the major things where I recognize that control came in was because of my childhood, because of the broken relationship that I had with my mom, and a lot of things that she desired, she didn't get. And so for me and her and I's relationship, I was a reflection of things that she didn't do. And so that put a rift within our relationship at many junctures, and even impacted sometimes how I parented, because I knew, okay, I don't want to do these things. I don't want to say these things. I was a kid that there was no affection in the home, okay? Like no I love yous that I could even recall. No hugs or anything of that nature. And so it built an external fortress, but also an internal fortress in me. So of course, when your kids are babies, you're gonna love on them, you're gonna hug them, you're gonna kiss them, you're gonna do all of these things, into which I did. But I remember vividly with my oldest son, when he hit about like 6, 7, I'll just say like between 6 and 8, I felt myself like shifting from like, okay, you're getting older, so all of the affection or the attention or all of those things, like you don't need it as much. And completely wrong mindset. Completely wrong mindset. I was still very much broken. And between that period in his life, 6 and 8, is actually when I met my youngest son's dad. And that was like night and day. The two men are night and day. The relationship was a night and day. And of course, there's no comparison there. But there are some things that you think of where you're like, okay, wait, I experienced this here, but over here, it's totally different. And I had to even reconcile that with God. And he had to tell me, like, Ashley, you have to stop trying to make them be similar. They are different. And you have to recognize the capacity that each one has. One father has this capacity. The other father has this capacity. Does it make it right? No. But like I said earlier, we have to realize that our actions are going to have consequences. And so a lot of what I experienced the second time around were definite consequences to even the warnings that God had given me concerning don't go into this relationship. And I was naive. I was broken. I was trying to do what a friend told me to do, an older friend, where she said, just go with the flow. So I was trying that out. And that was probably the time that I needed to take control and be like, nah, this is not what we doing. This is not what we doing. But from the early part of my journey in parenting, which was, like I said, 19 till about, let's just say 27, 28, it was not all of it, but some of it was a hot mess. And so let's get into what that hot mess looked like.